Yeah, they were using this one last time. It worked pretty well. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. It is now 9:46, and I have you all till 10:45, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. Let's see. So welcome to the session. This is the Tribal Branch from USEPA Region 9, and here we're just basically going to do a little introduction on who we are as a branch, what are our functions, what are our responsibilities and duties, but also do a meet the team. And as mentioned yesterday, we haven't been able to do as many site visits. Well, for the last 2 years, we weren't able to do site visits. And then when we were given the green light, we were very excited to jump in and have some. And so some project officers were able to conduct 1 or 2 or 3 site visits until we ran out of money to be able to send some project officers out. So I wanted to take an opportunity now that we're all here in person for everyone in the room to be able to get to know the GAP project officer that's assigned to serve you, as well as just getting to know each other on a person-to-person level. You'll have plenty of time to talk about GAP and work plans and budgets, especially as we jump into coordination calls. However, today we're going to be very just kind of focused on doing some fun games at the end, like some get to know you. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Tribal Branch. So first of all, my name is Ruben Mojica Hernandez, and I am the Tribal Branch Manager for a year and a half now. Our branch has 16 folks, or 17 including myself, with all dedicated individuals that are very passionate about the work we do. I'm very lucky to have a very amazing staff who really care about the work they do and work really hard to serve you, as well as to help me and help the mission and our goals of the branch, as well as EPA's mission of protecting the environment and human health. I'm very excited to be in person with you all, and for those of you that are with us virtually, you're also here in spirit. And so a little bit of background of what we're doing. So in the Tribal Branch, I'm going to give you some background of how we keep busy in the Tribal Branch. I'm going to cover some various ways we engage with tribes, as well as how we administer the GAP program. And then we'll do some big group activities for opportunities to meet the team. So we can go ahead and jump and get started. So an overview. So we're just first going to go into how we, some engagement with tribes. Next slide. Yeah. So there's, of course, annual in-person site visits. This is probably the best part of being a GAP PO. When I was a GAP PO from 2015 to 2018, this is definitely was my favorite part, is actually getting out to do site visits to see the projects that were coming to fruition from the work plans on tribal lands. And so while, again, we're not able to conduct as many right now, we're very eager to get a budget from headquarters so that we can start planning the site visits. This is also a very important part of the work, because it's really the biggest part for relationship building with tribes, from between GAP POs and the grantees that they serve. There's also the quarterly regional tribal operations committee meetings. So our branch is also in charge of coordinating those meetings. You'll be able to meet Marisol Anaya, who is currently acting as our RTOC coordinator while Julianne is away on maternity leave. And so the RTOC is a working committee of EPA and tribal personnel, co-chaired by an EPA representative, as well as a tribal representative, Mervyn Wright. And all tribes in Region 9 are considered members of the RTOC. And so it's also it's an opportunity for us to also engage with tribes, talk about issues, and have some very important conversations on how we can improve tribal programs at EPA. There's, of course, the quarterly newsletter. So I hope you've had, if you're not getting a newsletter from us, please let me know, and we'll make sure that you get on the listserv so that you can start receiving those. Those are up. Go ahead. Or sign there. There you go. Thank you, Mark. Very proactive. See, great team. And so, yeah, so Mark and Sophia are leads for the newsletter. And Sophia's down there, in case you didn't see her. And so it's an opportunity for us to kind of put out the word on resources, updates from EPA, success stories, or anything really. And so we hope that you are receiving it. And if you have any feedback about the content, please let us know. We're always trying to improve like what information we're getting out there, making sure we're getting it on time, and whatnot. Okay, yeah, go ahead. And then there's, of course, the annual Tribal EPA conference. So this is this big conference is something that our offices also coordinates. We, of course, work on this conference with a tribal partner. And so I was a RTOC coordinator for the 3 years that I was a GAP project officer. And so now we have Jeanette Sasek, who is our RTOC coordinator, or excuse me, conference coordinator. And so she works a lot with Shasta to coordinate the conference and make sure that, you know, everything goes smoothly. And then, of course, there's consultation. So it's the implementation of EPA's consultation policy remains a top priority of the agency. So EPA strives to learn from its past consultations and ongoing. In the tribal branch, we have JR right over there, who is our tribal consultation advisor. So he advises the EPA on you know, best practices for consultation. And I myself will be jumping into the RTOC consultation lead for EPA. And since Jeremy Bauer is no longer in the role. So I will be stepping in on that going forward. Yeah, that was everything. Okay, next slide. All right, so a little bit about GAP. So one of our biggest responsibilities in the tribal branch is administering the General Assistance Program. And so out of curiosity, who here has more than 1 year of experience with GAP? Okay, great. So who here is new to GAP and just here to kind of barely learning all the fun things about GAP and not fun things? Okay, great. Well, I'm really glad that we have a mixture of both. And so we will have a TIP division. So GAP, or excuse me, the tribal branch exists in the TIP division, the Tribal Intergovernmental Policy Division, which we'll be having tomorrow. And I'll be going into a lot more in-depth session tomorrow about GAP. But essentially, our responsibility is to administer GAP grants and to assist tribes and intertribal consortia in developing the capacity to manage their own environmental protection programs and to develop and implement solid and hazardous waste programs. We also provide technical assistance to GAP recipients as they develop GAP work plans and budgets to ensure the tribe is successful in meeting the goals of GAP and the tribe. 2 examples of technical assistance include GAP trainings, webinars, like those at the RTOC and here at the conference. And then also check-ins between GAP POs and grantees to discuss work plan developments and review. And so as you probably have heard at the RTOC or at other sessions, you know, there is a GAP guidance. So a new GAP guidance was issued on September 30th of this last year. And so one thing I really quickly wanted to say is our branch is right now in the middle of reviewing this new GAP guidance. There was a whole consultation period that occurred from June of this year that ended on from June to August that ended on August 1st. And so after that, you know, AIEO took all the comments, took our comments and our feedback and have now issued a final new GAP guidance. So back to what I was saying, our office is in the middle of reading it. I've assigned every GAP project officer between now and I think I said November 12th to 13th to have read the entire document so we can each just kind of absorb the information. I encourage you to also read the document that came out September 30th. If you don't have that email or didn't receive it, please let me know and I can make sure you get the access to the document. So while it's a little bit, we're learning and we're also waiting on some trainings from headquarters to further understand this new GAP guidance and how we're going to be implementing it into this FY24 cycle award year for the applications. So just like you, we are in the midst of learning and figuring out how it's going to work. And, you know, we're eager to kind of figure this out. And then we're also ready to provide some feedback to headquarters about, you know, how it's working, how it's going. I think our branch would like to work with the grantees we serve and our applicants to say, all right, how is it working? And maybe over a course of 2 years, it is kind of give a report card to AIO, whether they ask for it or not, about how this gap guidance is working and not wait, 5-10 years as issues pile up. So that's kind of our perspective in Region 9. And so, we're excited to learn about it and see how we can really use this gap guidance to really ensure that tribes in Region 9 and, across the country are truly able to be successful, because that is our top priority. And there may also be some questions about gap allocation. So about in terms of how we fund. I will go over a little bit about how we kind of do it internally in the region. But in terms of gap allocation, that's something that headquarters is still working on. I myself don't have any major updates that I can give. And I'm also waiting on some updates. So as soon as I know, I'll make sure to pass that information on. Yeah, and there will be some time for some questions at the end. So those are the things I wanted to address about the gap guidance as well as gap allocation. And so, yeah, so the next part, yes, it's there, okay, is I want to talk a little bit about our grant cycle. I don't have a little pointy thingy. Do I? No? Do I have one?
No.
All right, you never know. So I wanted to be a little bit transparent and talked about like what a grant cycle looks like for us. And so this was in the notification last year. So this is kind of what our process was this last year to award FY23 awards on time. So, this year will pretty much kind of look the same, and I'll talk a little bit about, in September, we had a team retreat where we discussed, okay, what went well, what did not, how can we improve our process so that we're making sure that, one, we're getting awards out on time, two, we're lessening the administrative burden for tribes, and that three, we're also making it, we're ensuring that we're getting through this process smoothly so that we can provide the important technical assistance, which is our favorite part of our work, not necessarily just the reviewing of quarterly reports. So the first thing is the application. So last year, and it'll be somewhat similar this year, applications would be due in like the second week of January. And so that's when, but I'm going to back up a little bit. The first thing that's going to be coming up is your coordination calls. So those are going to be very important this year because hopefully by then, GAP project officers will have had the opportunity to have completed the trainings from AIO on this new GAP guidance. And while we're not going to be full experts, we're really hoping to at least have a good grasp on how to work with this within this new framework and paradigm with the income for the development of work plans for FY24. So please make sure that you meet with your project officer to have a coordination call. That's what we call it, coordination calls, and it's really just to start brainstorming and start thinking about what we're going to do or what you want to include in your work plan and what your budget's going to look like for the FY24 awards for those applications that will be due in January 2023. So that occurs between November and December. So, it can be, if you need a 3-hour meeting, sorry, GAP POs, request a 3-hour meeting. I think I asked for a minimum of each GAP PO to spend at least an hour and a half with each of you to really discuss what the work plan should look like. And so that'll be the first thing, is to start brainstorming, start thinking about this FY24 application and the work plan and the budget and what it's going to look like. So hopefully, you'll have a good idea of what that's going to look like, and then you'll have developed your work plan and budget, and then that's when you submit it into grants.gov in January. So we'll spend some time looking at what we're going to be doing. So once we receive the application, we all sit down, and so something new that we're going to be doing this year is we're going to be doing what I've been calling, and I'm trying to figure out a more nicer way to put it. We're going to be doing boot camps, where each as a team we're going to spend like 1 or 2 weeks only dedicated on just looking at applications. As you'll see and as you'll learn in a little bit later, and as you saw earlier in the presentation, there are a lot of other responsibilities that each GAP PO has. They each have like around 2 to 3 special projects that they're each responsible for, like the art talk, the conference, the newsletter. But we want some dedicated time to get these applications reviewed and get them reviewed quickly, but also thoroughly. So that's something new we'll be doing. So we'll spend that time in January, February, kind of looking at the applications and starting initial reviews of your work plans and budgets. In that time, they're also looking at they're also finalizing joint evaluations and end of year reports. So while we're working and looking at how work plans are going to be in the future, we're also looking at how did the award cycle, how did everything end in the last year. So we're looking at quarterly reports and developing a joint evaluation end of year report. So it's joint evaluation because it's something that we'll develop, but then send it to the grantees we serve for review. And this is an opportunity for grantees to kind of look at the assessment, make comments, and provide feedback to the GAP PO and say, hey, I think this was wrong. Can we have a conversation about it? Or, this is an error. And GAP POs are expected to have a conversation, follow-up conversation, and, to finalize the report together. Once that report is finalized, then it gets sent to me for a final review. And then I will then email it out to your tribal leader you've asked us to send it to, typically a chairperson. So at the same time that we're doing that, we're doing work plan, budget, and negotiations. So that occurs between January and July. And so what we used to do, and what you're seeing up there, is that we used to, for no particular reason, we would kind of group our grant portfolios because at this time, each GAP PO had around 10 to an average like 11 grantees that they worked with. And I'm happy to say that with our new incoming staff, each GAP PO now has less than 10, has 9 or less. And so that is a big thing for us because that means that they have more time to dedicate to technical assistance and to provide technical service because, they're, less of a portfolio means more dedicated time to each grantee. So what we would do is we would break out, we would kind of just assign groups, a group A, a group B, and then during, a GAP PO would say, all right, for group A, I'm going to focus on these 3 grantees that I work with and kind of look at the work plan and the budget. And then later, when we go into group B phase, then they'll look at that group. There was no particular order or reason as to how we did the groupings. It was just, however they wanted. There was not like a priority or anything like that. It was just kind of easier to kind of maintain focus on some. So, but like I said, what we're doing this year, instead of spanning this over several months, we're going to do some focus time. So we're going to do some boot camps where there will be 2 weeks where GAP POs will be responsible to just focus on looking at those work plans, all of them. And so we're hoping to get all our negotiation done no later than around, I think it was around March, correct me if I'm wrong. So much earlier so that we have enough time for feedback and reaching out to tribes on, work plan negotiations and getting through, especially this year with the new GAP guidance, we believe we're going to need some more of that one-on-one time. And so we hope that this will kind of help with that. So this is, once we get a final work plan and a budget, then we go ahead and move on into completing funding recommendations and commitment notices. And so this is basically just putting together a final package for an award that is sent to Congress and saying, here's the final work plan, the budget, here's the final award amount, tentative award. And then that's when we pass on the package over to our grants office, and then they will process the award so that you have the money ready to go on October 1st. But also during this entire time, we're also assessing the current year award. So while we're in the earlier part, we're looking at the past, each GAP PO is also responsible for assessing the current year award. So, and that's your quarterly reports and deliverables that are due at the end of every quarter. At the end of every quarter, but you have 30 days after the end of every quarter to submit your quarterly reports and deliverables. I've been sending out friendly reminders to grantees about those due dates. Let me know if that's helpful or not. If it's just annoying to keep getting emails from me, let me know. Okay, if it's helpful, that's good. Then I will keep doing it. Yeah, and it's also a time to, in the email, I also really strongly encourage you to reach out to your GAP PO and let us know if there's some issues going on. So if you're going to be late or only half the reporting is going to be done, let us know. It's not, when things go wrong all the time. For example, there was a pandemic, we didn't expect that. So please communicate to us. Don't think that we're over here sitting waiting for something to go wrong. It's what I've expressed to our grant project officers is that if there's a problem and something wasn't, if a quarterly report wasn't submitted or something went wrong, our assumption is that, what do they do? How are we going to get them? What's going on? The approach that we're taking is, why didn't this happen and how can we help? So, it's what can we do to help the tribe be successful? We're not here to, I know we're project officers, but we're really there to actually help you succeed, and we're there to serve you and say, okay, if reports were late, then why? And what can I do to help you to get those in? It's fine if they were late, just let us know. The key thing is to communicate with us so that we can really work together so that you can get those things in. And again, our priority is for you to do the important work and less than the administrative stuff. So the key is just communicate with us when things are going wrong, when work plans need to change ahead of time so that we can work through it together. Because we honestly just want the tribes to be successful in getting all that really amazing work in your work plans completed. So once we finish submitting all of our packages to our packages in terms of when I say that, I mean the work plans to our grants office to process. It's now in their hands, and they're an amazing team who typically gets everything done, or they get everything done on time and to make sure you get your award on October 1st. And so now where we are now is we're on this side over here towards November, October. What we're working on right now is getting out a notification for FY24. So we're working with headquarters right now on, kind of finalizing that language, making sure all the important information that you need to have to submit an application is in there. And as well as, what a work plan should look like, what your budget should look like. And so that all that information will be in there. And then, of course, coordination calls again will start again in November, or around November. And up there, you'll also see, the joint evaluation for FY22 will begin. And so that's right now, GAP POs will be expected to first do their own assessment of the grant and then to have a follow-up conversation and discussion with you. When you receive the report, it's not a final, it's a draft. If there's mistakes in it, it's okay. Address them with your GAP PO, have a conversation with them about, what maybe errors they caught or how to make the report accurate. It is a joint evaluation. So, what we do is that we do that first assessment and we put together the report so that you don't have to. So we go through and do everything that with all the information that we have, we go through and complete that end of your report and joint evaluation as a draft so that you don't have to go through and sit there like, okay, here's all the things I submitted, here's the thing that I didn't. So we wanted to kind of take that work on so that you can continue to work on the important work, which is in your work plan. And then, so that's why we develop it. And then we send it for you for an analysis and evaluation to let us know if it's all okay or what areas kind of need some work on or, what errors were made. And that's okay. So it is meant to be a discussion to had between both. And if you're experiencing something difficult, always feel free to reach out to me. And I'm happy to assist and step in when needed. All right. Any questions so far on this or anything before? I can pause right now and take a question. For our newer folks who are jumping into GAP for the first time or the second time, any questions about GAP?
Ruben, I heard you say that the work plans will be due the second week of January. When will the solicitation come out?
Yeah.
Shortly after.
Yeah. So we were looking at mid-January, but I think I made the decision to push it back to the third week of January to kind of give more time for an application. I can't remember the date exactly off the top of my head. But in terms of the notification, we're hoping to get that out mid-November, if not way earlier. I'm in conversations with AIO on what the language in there should be and just making sure that all the relevant information from Region 9 is in the notification. So very, very soon. I'm sorry, I don't have an exact date for you yet, but I do have a meeting with them sometime this week to kind of go over this notification because we do want to get it out with the due dates and then just all the general language. And then we're hoping to have a webinar to kind of go over the notification in December. So as soon as we're also simultaneously working at the same time to put together a webinar, and we'll have that date out soon once we know when the notification will go out, to go in depth with tribes in Region 9 on what's in the notification, what are the expectations, the due dates, and make sure everyone has a clear understanding of how to get an application in on time. So no like official answer, so I apologize, but we are working on it. Yeah.
Will PPGs have a due date later than the original grant due date?
So PPGs will be due at the same time. Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so if your grant is in a PPG, your work plan and budget will be due the same day that the GAP applications for sole GAP applications are due. So you won't be submitting to grants.gov. You'll just be submitting your work plan and your budget to your GAP project officer, and that's it. And then later, as they do their assessments and work with the other offices, then they will will tell you when to submit your application. So they'll work with the other offices within so if you have a PPG with water and GAP, they will work with the water team to then give you an application due date, which will be later. But for GAP, your work plan and budget will be due the same day as your GAP application, should it just have been GAP. And all this will be explained in the notification too. And so the other thing too is that if for Tribal Consortium in Region 9, they will have an extra week. So then so for example, this last year, GAP applications or work plans and budgets, if you're a PPG, were due the 13th, and then Tribal Consortium were due a week later, and we'll do the same thing for this year. That's a very good question to clarify. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? It's a very, there's a lot going on here where each GAP project officer is essentially having to focus on a past year award, a current, and then while also working through getting an approvable work plan for the future. So along the ways, some mistakes get made. So always feel free, like you can reach out to your GAP project officer or myself for support. And if deadlines need to be extended, I'm very flexible, very understanding, I like to think. So, I understand that life happens, and also you're also having to work on assessing the last year report, working on the future application, and then also trying to complete your work plan. So we definitely understand that you're very busy. And so if you needed an extension on quarterly reports, I am pretty understanding and happy to give you that extension because it's my priority for you to be successful. I just ask that you just communicate with us and let us know. We're not there policing or being officers, we're there to serve you and let us know what we can do to help so that, the work gets done. Because, what we want to see is for the work plans to come to fruition and for you all to be successful, because together that's how we're gonna, meet our mission, our joint mission to protect the environment and human health and ensure that, your communities thrive.
There was a question, Ruben, about whether or not there's going to be the opportunity to still do 2-year awards.
Yeah, so it really just depends on the allocation or the funding that we get from headquarters. And so, yeah, we're definitely open to opportunities where we could do 2-year awards. And it's always helpful to us because that's one less application to process, one less application for you to have to do. So yeah, there's still opportunities for that. It just depends on like the availability of funding, if we can award, a tribe or more than one, a 2 years worth of money. Okay, so I guess next slide. So I touched on this a lot, but some very important annual check-ins and deadlines that I kind of wanted to emphasize, even though I kind of already did, is your coordination calls. So that's the first thing that's going to be coming up. So look out for those emails from your GAP project officers about setting up a coordination call. Like I said, this one's going to be very particularly important because we're going to be implementing the new GAP guidance. If you have time, at least just hopefully skim over it. It's our GAP project officer's responsibility to eventually become experts at it, but it would be helpful if you have some familiarity with it. And it's during these coordination calls where we can really kind of get into the nitty gritty of this new GAP guidance. And I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that this new revised GAP guidance will really bring some flexibility into the program. But again, like as I've been saying, we won't actually really know until we start working with it. So your feedback is really important to us as we're going through and assessing, what are our challenges as GAP project officers when we're trying to get to yes. What are the challenges that we're seeing when working with you? And we plan to give that feedback to AIEO at the end of every year and say, this worked, this didn't. This is where we're seeing challenges with it, where tribes are seeing challenges with it, and then hoping that they would be receptive to that feedback. So coordination calls, very important. It's the brainstorming for the next award. The next part is the joint evaluation end of year report. So again, when you receive an email about this end of year report and the joint evaluation, please make it a little bit of a priority to review it. Not right away, but just let your GAP PO when you'll be able to get to it, and then assess it, be critical of it. Let your project officer know what was right in the report, what was incorrect, and then get to a final one together where you're both happy with everything that was in there. If there's anything missing, your GAP project officer will let you know what quarterly reports were missing, how we can get to it, and then so that once the report is final, everything is good to go. And then also, GAP application due dates, the official dates will be coming out very soon when the notification is out. But just make sure you circle that day on your calendar, put it in your phone, sticky note it to your forehead, just to make sure that you get that application in on time. We, of course, offer extensions. Like I was saying, life happens. And it happens every year where, there's some grantees that need an extension, and I'm always open to that. Very understanding. The key thing is to just communicate with me and let me know in advance so that we know to expect a late application. Because at the same time, we're also working in our grants office. So that's part of why we need to know these things so that we can notify our partners in the processing of these grants and say, hey, we're going to expecting some late ones, so please work with us to get these late awards, so that because they have their own metrics they need to follow. The other one is quarterly reporting. I mentioned you get at the end of every quarter you get 30 days to submit your quarterly reports. So just get those in. If they're late, again, just reach out to your GAP project officer and let us know. Let us know if there's something we can do on our end to help you be successful to get those in eventually. And one of the things that we've been implementing in our work plan negotiations, and that I've asked each GAP PO to do, is to really look at those deliverables and keeping them concise, tangible, and fair. I think in the past, there would be 10 deliverables listed under one commitment. I thought that's way too much, because then once that gets approved, you were expected to get those 10 documents. So really looking at each commitment and saying, of those 10, what is one, ideally one or two of those things that could really show us the completion of this activity, and keeping it simple. And if it's just reports, that's fine too. So hopefully, as you're developing your work plans, and something I'll reinforce to the team as they go into coordination calls, to make sure that those deliverables are concise and tangible and fair, so that this makes reporting easy too. And then, of course, there's the FFR. It's the Federal Financial Reporting Form. And so this basically just shows all the finances and what they look like at the end. So this is really important for us to develop end of years. So please make sure that you get those in on time. They don't have to be submitted to GAP project officers. I'm blanking on who they go to. Yes, they go to your grant specialist, but we would really appreciate it and love it, and we do a little happy dance if you also CC'd us on those emails, because it's really beneficial for us to have that information so that we can kind of do also a financial assessment and see if there's any money left over, and if so, we can initiate a conversation with the grantee to say, hey, you have 10,000 left over. What would you like to do with this? You have the options of carrying it over, or or other options as well. So that is a very important document that it gets in on time. It really is helpful to us. And then there's, of course, the check-ins for work plans, negotiations for budgets as well. Like I said, things happen, things need to change, and that's perfectly fine. So just let us know ahead of time. Hey, this isn't going to get done. And we're like, okay, so then how can we help you with the next step? Would you like to swap it out for something else? Or would you like to push it into the next year of your award? So yeah, the earlier you communicate with us, the better we can help you and support you in kind of moving things along. Any questions? All right. So now we're going to get to the fun part. This is our tribal branch. And so this is a picture from our team retreat that we had this last September, where we did a lot of just we've been working virtually, and so this was our first time being together as a full team. We also have some folks that work in San Diego, so aren't in San Francisco. So, and our folks that work remotely were able to come in, and we were able to work as a team on how to improve our process, lessen the administrative burdens and have those conversations. And so what we're going to do now is so not pictured is Julianne Schroeder. She's also on our team, and she's not here today. She had a baby recently, so she's being a mama, and we definitely support her. And also not able to come here was Gilbert Pasqua. He was not able to come, but he's also GAP project officer. So just, yeah. And they were not able to be at the retreat because they were both out. But this is our team, and so I'm going to ask the team to stand up. All right. So team, go ahead and find a different area of the space of the room. Not next to each other. Not that close. I mean, okay. So this is going to turn into a little bit of a madhouse. So I am going to go ahead and release you to go ahead and just meet the team. I first am going to ask that you do no gap talk. There's plenty of time to talk about work plans and budgets, and we've talked about it so many already. So this is an opportunity just to actually get to know each other as a person. So the 3 questions that I would like for you to ask, and you're also welcome to ask your own, is ask them about a favorite memory of theirs. What music motivates them the most or gets them motivated? And then the third is favorite food. I don't know. Or your own questions. But keep the questions, just person to person, human to human. Right now, when I stop talking, gap no longer exists. And right now, we're just breaking down those barriers and just getting to know each other's people. And then you'll have your coordination call to get back into gap. So I encourage you to first go to a project officer that is not yours, that does not work with you, because again, you'll get plenty of opportunity to talk to them. But yeah, go ahead and just jump. And then when I say switch, then you'll switch to another gap project officer. It is gap PO speed dating. So I release you. You can also come up to me. I'll be up here. Go ahead and rotate or just continue your conversations. This is pretty loosey-goosey. go ahead and rotate or continue your conversations. I don't know, whatever you want to do. I don't really care. Just a quick time check. We have 4 minutes left in this session, so just go ahead, mingle, wrap up your conversations, and then we'll be done in 4 minutes and then we'll exit for the next session. Wait.
Yeah, there is one more session before the lunch.
Sorry to interrupt, but the session's all done in case you wanted to know.
Oh, wait, no, let's keep talking. So the session is over. There is another one that's starting soon. So please, continue your conversations throughout the week. Thank you.